Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more engaging stories and insights. As the cranberry sauce steamed gently on the table, my sister Michelle dropped a stunning revelation during our family's Thanksgiving feast. Rising from her seat at the table's head, wine glass raised as if toasting her own cleverness, she commanded the room's attention. The chatter faded, leaving only the faint clink of forks against porcelain as 23 relatives turned their gazes toward her. "I have thrilling news to share," she declared, her voice laced with the smug confidence she'd honed over years. "I've been guiding Sarah towards some critical financial choices she should have made long ago." With a flourish of her glass, she gestured at me, and I felt the weight of dozens of eyes from our sprawling family settle on me. I sliced my turkey with deliberate calm, keeping my face impassive. At 32, I'd learned that responding to Michelle's theatrics only fueled her craving for drama. She, at 35, was married to Brad, a prosperous orthodontist, and had crowned herself the family's financial guru, despite her experience being limited to running his dental practice and hosting charity galas at their country club. "Sarah's been stuck in that tiny downtown condo for 6 years, Michelle went on, her tone growing more animated. "That cramped space with its dated kitchen and tacky laminate counters. She's never upgraded or improved her lot. She's been wasting money on mortgage payments and taxes when she could be securing her future." Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. My cousin Jennifer nodded enthusiastically from across the spread. "I've said the same thing. That place is so small you can't even fit a proper dining table." Michelle basked in the validation. "Exactly. So, I took charge and listed it for sale through a real estate agent, one of Brad's patients. We secured a buyer for $315,000, which, frankly, is more than that little condo's worth in this shaky market." The table erupted in cheers. Aunt Linda clapped with genuine delight. "Oh, Michelle, that's fantastic. Someone had to step in and help Sarah make sensible choices." Uncle Bob, who owned several rental properties, nodded knowingly beside my father. "With interest rates rising, the market's about to tank. Best to sell now while there's still profit to be made." My mother beamed with pride, glancing between Michelle and me. "This is the kind of family support we need in tough times." Michelle's always had a knack for money and planning. Remember how she helped Aunt Carol refinance and saved her thousands? She turned to me with that familiar, slightly patronizing look she'd used since my teenage years of questionable decisions. "Sweetheart, you should be thankful Michelle took the reins. You've always been too attached to that little place, and attachment doesn't build wealth or stability." I sipped my coffee slowly, offering a serene smile. "That's quite a feat, Michelle. I'm sure you put a lot of effort into this." The family took my calm response as acceptance, perhaps even gratitude tinged with embarrassment over my financial shortcomings being aired so publicly. They had no clue that my modest condo was registered with the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network as a monitored property under federal security protocols. They couldn't know that any unauthorized transactions tied to it would spark an unstoppable federal investigation. Michelle had no inkling that I worked as a senior financial analyst at FinCEN, specializing in intricate money laundering cases and global financial crime networks. My top secret clearance demanded full disclosure of all assets, investments, and financial ties. My condo's deed was flagged in federal databases as belonging to someone with access to sensitive financial intelligence that could jeopardize national security if misused. The one-bedroom unit I'd bought with cash 6 years ago wasn't just my home. It was a protected federal asset under constant surveillance to detect any unauthorized access, changes, or transfer attempts. Its location was chosen after rigorous background checks and security reviews by federal agencies. To my family, I was a struggling government worker scraping by in a cramped downtown apartment that fell short of their standards. They saw my 7-year-old Honda Civic with its dented door, my coupon clipping at discount grocery stores, and my lack of lavish vacations as signs of financial strain. They assumed my Treasury Department job was some low-level clerical role, barely covering my bills with no real prospects. When asked about my work, I'd say financial analysis for the Treasury, which they dismissed as dull paperwork anyone with basic math skills could do. What they didn't see was that my security clearance tightly controlled my financial life. where I could live, what I could buy, how I could invest, who I could associate with, and even which countries I could visit. Every asset I owned was disclosed, documented, and monitored by federal systems. My condo, which they deemed tiny and outdated, was strategically located near federal facilities, purchased after months of audits and security checks. Its modest furnishings and lack of flashy electronics weren't signs of poverty, but requirements for maintaining my clearance. The closing is set for next Friday at 2 p.m., Michelle continued, relishing her role as the family's financial savior. I've signed all the paperwork as Sarah's power of attorney, so there won't be any hiccups. The buyers are a sweet young couple from Brad's practice. He worked on their teeth last year. They're paying cash, so no worries about financing delays. Jennifer leaned forward, visibly impressed. You have power of attorney over Sarah's finances? That's such smart planning for family emergencies. Michelle waved off the praise, as if the legal details were trivial. Oh, I just signed Sarah's name on the documents. She'd overthink it and probably back out at the last second, like always. Sometimes family has to make tough calls for those who can't see the bigger picture. Her casual confession of forgery hung in the air, treated as a normal family matter rather than a grave crime. Several relatives chuckled, nodding at her practical approach. My father laughed heartily, shaking his head with fond amusement. That's Michelle, always slicing through red tape to get things done. Uncle Bob raised his beer in a mock toast. Sometimes you have to save people from their own bad decisions. Sarah's lucky to have someone watching out for her. I took another sip of coffee, maintaining my composed, grateful facade. Michelle had just admitted to identity theft, wire fraud, and federal property crimes in front of 23 witnesses, many of whom had cheered her on. She'd also committed felonies by attempting to transfer a monitored asset without federal authorization, but I said nothing about the legal ramifications. In roughly 18 hours, she'd face the consequences firsthand through federal law enforcement. The rest of dinner buzzed with praise for Michelle's initiative. She detailed how she'd found the buyers through Brad's dental connections, negotiated the price up from $290,000 by touting the condo's prime location, and planned to help me find a more suitable rental in their suburban neighborhood. Sarah can finally stop wasting money on mortgages, taxes, and upkeep, she proclaimed, serving pumpkin pie with evident satisfaction. Renting makes so much sense for someone in her position and income bracket. No repairs, no market stress, just simple monthly payments that free up funds for other priorities. My 87-year-old grandmother, who'd always fretted over my unconventional choices, patted my hand warmly. This is such a blessing, dear. Michelle's truly looking out for your future. You should heed her advice more often. The table hummed with agreement, convinced they were witnessing a loving intervention rather than a cascade of federal crimes that would lead to years in prison. After dinner, Michelle pulled me aside in the warm, bustling kitchen as others settled in the living room for football and political debates. Flushed from wine and triumph, she loaded the dishwasher with the efficiency of someone accustomed to directing staff. I know this feels abrupt and maybe overwhelming, she said with feigned empathy, using the tone reserved for explaining complex ideas to less savvy folks. Change is tough, especially when you're cozy in less than ideal circumstances. But sometimes those who care about you have to make hard choices. You can't see clearly. I dried the dishes she handed me, nodding thoughtfully. I'm sure it'll all work out as it's meant to, Michelle. You've clearly put a lot of thought into this. She smiled, relieved I wasn't stirring up drama by resisting her reasonable plan. Exactly. That's the mature attitude I hoped for. Sometimes the younger sister needs the older one to make bold decisions that feel scary now, but prove right in the end. She dried her hands and gave me a look of someone issuing vital instructions. The closing's at 2 p.m. Friday at Stevens and Associates on 5th Street. It's the firm Brad uses for his contracts, very professional. I'll handle everything. You don't need to take time off work. I'll bring the documents to your place Friday evening, so you can see it was all done properly. Friday morning dawned cold and gray, hinting at December snow. I was at my Treasury Department desk by 7:15 a.m., earlier than usual to clear my workload before the inevitable disruptions. My fourth-floor office overlooked the PTOAC River, and I spent the morning analyzing suspicious activity reports from mid-Atlantic banks. My current project tracked cryptocurrency money laundering patterns linked to international terrorist financing. The work involved dissecting complex data, liaising with law enforcement across jurisdictions, and preparing reports for federal prosecutions. At 11:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is David Stevens from Stevens and Associates. Urgent emergency with your property sale. Call immediately. I didn't rush to call back. In legal contexts, emergency often meant someone had stumbled into serious criminal trouble. Panic rarely helped. Instead, I finished analyzing a complex wire transfer pattern suggesting shell company fraud across 6 states, submitted my report through secure channels, and called Stevens at 12:23 p.m. Miss Johnson. Thank God, he said, his voice taut with panic. FBI agents are here with warrants. They've seized all files tied to your property sale, contracts, financials, correspondence. They're saying it involves federal property fraud, identity theft, and unauthorized transfer of monitored assets. I leaned back, gazing at the gray sky over the PTOAC. That sounds serious, Mr. Stevens. What are they telling you? His voice cracked. They've issued warrants for document seizure and are treating this as a major investigation. They want to speak with your sister immediately and need her location and contact info. Miss Johnson, did you authorize Michelle to sign documents for your property sale? No, Mr. Stevens, I did not, I replied. A long pause followed, filled with his rapid breathing. Oh my God, she forged your signature on federal property transfer documents. This is multiple federal crimes with mandatory minimums. I heard authoritative voices in the background, familiar tones from my own work with law enforcement. Mr. Stevens, I suggest you cooperate fully with the investigators and provide all requested information. At 1:23 p.m., Michelle called, her voice shrill with panic. Sarah, what's happening? FBI agents are at my house with badges and warrants, saying I committed federal crimes. They want to arrest me and seize my computer and records. I was still at my desk, calmly reviewing files for an afternoon meeting on cryptocurrency protocols. Outside, federal employees moved between buildings, handling routine national security tasks. That sounds very upsetting, Michelle. Upsetting? They're talking about prison. Something about monitored property, security violations, and unauthorized asset transfers. What does that mean? You do boring government paperwork. 2 agents, Maria Rodriguez from the FBI's Financial Crimes Task Force and James Park from Treasury's Criminal Investigation Division, had arrived at her house at 1:15 p.m. They'd spent the morning reviewing automated investigation reports triggered when my condo's attempted sale was flagged at 9:42 a.m. by the FinCEN database after the title company filed paperwork. By 10:15 a.m., investigators had confirmed identity theft and were preparing warrants. Michelle, I said evenly, maintaining the calm I'd held at dinner, you admitted yesterday to forging my signature to sell federal property. That's wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and attempted unauthorized transfer of a monitored asset. My condo is registered with the Treasury as a protected asset. Unauthorized transactions trigger automatic investigations that can't be stopped. Her breathing grew ragged, laced with muffled sobs. Federal property? It's just your stupid little condo. It's a monitored asset, I continued. Your forged signature constitutes felonies with mandatory sentences of 4 to 12 years. You need to surrender to authorities and hire a federal criminal defense attorney. Resisting or obstructing will add charges. The buyer's earnest money was seized. The title company was under investigation, and Stevens was cooperating to avoid charges. But I was helping you, she cried. The family agreed it was the right move. Family agreement doesn't override federal law, I said. You confessed to crimes in front of 23 witnesses who will testify in court. Agent Rodriguez's calm voice in the background explained Miranda rights. Michelle surrendered at the FBI field office at 2:47 p.m., processed and held pending arraignment on charges of wire fraud, identity theft, attempted property fraud, conspiracy, and security violations. The U.S. Attorney's Office filed charges within 72 hours, with Michelle facing 6 to 10 years in prison and over $85,000 in restitution. The buyers, David and Jennifer Walsh, lost their $31,500 deposit and faced legal fees exceeding $15,000, though they were deemed unwitting victims. Stevens faced Bar Association discipline for failing to verify signatures, and his insurance company pursued recovery for losses. My family called me cold and vindictive. Unable to grasp that I hadn't pressed charges, federal systems had detected the crimes automatically. My mother pleaded for me to make the charges vanish, not understanding my role in investigating, not dismissing financial crimes. At Michelle's arraignment, she appeared in court pale and worn, pleading not guilty and claiming she thought she was helping me. Prosecutors presented her dinner confession, financial records, witness testimonies, and expert explanations of federal monitoring systems. Bail was denied due to flight risk and the severity of the charges. Investigations later uncovered Michelle's prior forgeries on family documents, revealing a pattern of fraud. Facing overwhelming evidence, she took a plea deal for 6 years in prison, 3 years probation, and $127,000 in restitution. My condo remains a protected federal asset, now under stricter monitoring. I still live modestly, drive my old Honda, and keep my lifestyle aligned with security requirements. Family gatherings are quieter now, with relatives wary of offering advice after 12 faced subpoenas and scrutiny. Michelle's letter from prison asked why I didn't warn her. I replied that federal law doesn't require warnings, and her choices led to her consequences. The letter was returned. Michelle had been transferred, possibly for disciplinary reasons. I sip my coffee at family events, smiling calmly as relatives tread carefully around my life choices. Some lessons about federal law are learned only through experience, and federal prison is a thorough teacher.